So we've looked at how to create very basic calculations using the operators add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But what happens, like when we go back to sheet 1, was it? Yes, it was sheet 1, when we have a lot of numbers. And remember, we did each one individually. Fine for 3 or 4. Anything more than 3, I don't know about you, think it's a bit of a waste of time to do this. Imagine you had 500. There is a limit to how many references you can have within a calculation. So, and it gets time consuming. 1,000, do you want to do 1,000 cells individually? No. So we've got something else that we use, and that's called a function. A function is a word that performs a calculation. Quite a lot of you will have used one function in particular. You may not know how it works completely, so I'm going to go through how it works. So don't fast forward, please listen to it all, because I find that when you know about the whole thing, it makes it easier to kind of move on to the next step. So most of you will know wonky E up at the top. That little button, I'm not going to use that yet. We're going to start with the equals because every single calculation starts with equals, because remember, that tells the computer, it tells Excel, everything after I want you to do something, and Excel does something. Okay? Then we use the word, and in this word it's sum. And you can see I started typing sum and tons of words pop up. And that's because we have quite a few. We have over 200 functions available to us. We're not going to look at 200 today, but we'll look at a few. So we've got sum. We then, oops, if I hadn't clicked out, there we go. We then open our bracket, and you can see the syntax at the top. Sum, number 1, comma, number 2, dot, 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 close bracket. So what that means is I could do that, put a comma, do that, put a comma, do that. Okay? So I could do that. And then at the very end, close my bracket, or if I'm lazy like I am, not, and the computer will close it for me. Again, that is a bit long, especially because we have no breaks in there. When you have no breaks and it's a continuing block, that's called a range. Okay? So if I wanted to add these numbers up, I'm just going to delete these here. I'm going to copy these numbers across. So what I want to do again is type my equals, sum, open bracket, and now highlight. So I've got a range, C32 colon to C7. Okay. So I've got individual cells or groups of cells. So say I want to add up this C3 to C7 and C3 to C7. I can do that. I can go sum, open bracket, highlight the first range, put a comma, and then the second range. And that's going to add the two ranges. So this is quite an easy way to create calculations as long as you know the word, the function. Fine. And simple functions, which is what these ones are, I personally have 3 classifications of functions. I've got simple functions, simple functions, and everything else. Simple functions are these ones. They start with the equals. Okay, they start with the equals. I'm just going to put a little mark in there so it doesn't go into or try and calculate. I'm going to start with my equals, then I'm going to put the word, so it's a function. I open my bracket, I have range 1 or number 1, then a comma, and the second. Okay, and I can have quite a few in there, close my bracket, and that's it. Okay, so this syntax works not just with a sum. Sum adds. That's it. If you use sum to subtract, then you shouldn't be using sum. Sum should be for adding only. If you want it to average, don't. There's something else. If you want it to find the highest or lowest values, no, there's other things. Only use sum to add. Okay. So this is my totals here. I'm just going to put a nice line above it, and then we know. Underneath, I'm going to use the shortcut, okay? And that's this wonky E, or the Autosum button. And I click on the drop down beside it, and you can see there's more. If I just click on the E itself, I get my sum, and it automatically highlights what it thinks is the range. That's not the range, so I highlight what it is, and then I press enter. So again, that is, you click in the cell that you want the answer. You click on the wonky E. You highlight the range. You press enter. If you ever highlight the range in the blank cell below and press wonky E, you may find occasionally that that doesn't work, that it deletes the last number. And yes, I have tried. I have seen it delete the last number. Not every time, but when you have enough, and I mean a lot of cells. So just get into the habit of clicking in a blank cell, then clicking on the auto sum, then highlighting the range, then pressing enter, and it always works. Trust me, you will never have a hiccup, ever. At least Excel will never have a hiccup with that. Now, other functions, because as I said, sum is just one. And let's do sum over here so you can see it. So we go equals sum, open bracket, number 1, number 2, dot, dot, dot. Okay? Other simple functions, they're in the drop-down. We've got an average. We've got this one. It's not actually count numbers is the actual function, but I'll go through that. We have a max and we have a min. So let's look at average first. So that's equals, and the word is average. We open our bracket, highlight the range. Now what this is the arithmetic mean. It's going to add up these numbers and divide by however many numbers it's adding up. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to add these up and divide by 5. Press enter. There we go. The average is 3. Okay, and then we've got max and min. These ones I'm going to type. So if you know them, like the average, you can type them. So I'm going to go min, open bracket, highlight. Okay, and I can actually click up here, and because it's a simple function, the syntax is exactly the same. I can change it to a max, press enter, and it's now a max, which is the highest number. Minimum is, or min is, the lowest number. So we've got an average. We have a min. And we have a max. Okay, if anybody spot the error, that's it. Okay, so we've got so far a sum adds, average for the arithmetic mean, min for the lowest value, max for the highest value. Then we have one called count. And you can see here I've actually got several. The first one we're going to look at is this count numbers. And when you pause on it, or when it's selected here, it says what the definition is. Counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So let's try it. So I've got 5 numbers. Now if I change one of these to, that wasn't a good, there we go, no data. It now changes it to 4 because it ignores text. And that's where the other count comes in. I just used my arrow key, my arrow down, to make this one the selection. highlight that one. And it now tells me what it is. It counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So it's going to count anything other than blank cells. Count blank, any guesses? Counts the blank cells. So it's all the blank cells. So that one can be quite useful if you are going through and finding out, say you have invitations, so you have all the list of names and in responses, so either not coming or a number for how many, then the blanks will tell you how many have not responded. Count A tells you how many have actually responded, and then just a simple sum will tell you how many are actually coming. So combining these in different cells can give you a variety of answers. Okay, and because I haven't finished it, it comes up and says, ooh, wait. So hash name, the error message, comes up when it can't distinguish what you're talking about. There is no C-O-U-N, sorry. Just going to delete that. We have another way to create functions. I'm just going to get rid of these here. So we're back to nothing. There's another way, and this is the fx, which is here, or at the bottom of our wonky e, we've got more functions. Same thing. And it brings up this insert function box, and this has to be one of my favorite tools for creating calculations, because if you're like me, you have a memory like a sieve, forget things if you don't use them very often, and so you might not remember even the word average, okay? You might have a mind blank. Well, we've got categories here, and I can go to all and see every single function available to me. I can also type, press go, and it brings me everything, and you can see it's recommended, everything that Excel thinks could possibly be useful. And when I single click on each, at the bottom it brings me a syntax in bold, and underneath that a definition. Always read the definition. Sometimes, oh, I went too far there, sorry about that. There we go. Sometimes the definition really doesn't make sense when we first start this. You have to get into the language, like returns the average, the arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, arrays, or references that contain numbers. So basically, it's the average of a range. Okay, I can go to count, and it says counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. Count A counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty, etc. So let me go back to average, and when I select average and I click on OK, it brings me up what I call the wizard. They're calling function arguments, but I find it's a wizard. It helps me out. I can type in number 1, the range, and I can just move this box out of the way and highlight. Okay, or I can use this little collapse button, what I call squishy button at the end, squish the box, highlight the range, and then unsquish the box. And it puts within these curly brackets the numbers. Then at the bottom, it also shows me what the answer is going to be. So even before I click on OK, I know whether or not there's going to be an error. I know what the numbers are, so I can tell, yes, I have correctly added the right numbers in, or no, I've completely messed it up and I need to go through and delete it. And also for each line, which same for these functions, for simple functions, but for other functions that we do, the definition of the line is different because they have different arguments. Each line is an argument. And in this case, all the arguments are the same. So it's just numbers, okay, or ranges, etc. So you can see I can only have 255 maximum lines of ranges of cells. So if I was doing individual cells separated by commas, then I'd be stuffed after 255. So that's quite good that I can have a whole range in here. And then for the answer, click on OK, and there we go. Great, so that is basic functions. And we're going to go into another, I'll do a second video for more examples, and that way if you want to look at the examples you can. If you want to stop here for now and do some more practice on your own, that is perfectly acceptable as well. Hope to talk to you soon.